this morning activists, citizen activists, in the finest sense of that word, from all across our great state of Missouri. And, you know, it was we Missourians. I've said this all over this state, and I've also said it debating health care, debating the constitutionality of health care at the Yale Law School in November of 2010, where they told me, my debate prep folks told me, you're going up against the #1 leading academic defender of Obamacare in the country, Professor Jack Baldwin. You can read his blogs on the subject, of which he is wrong on every point. We had a great clash there in November of 2010, and I had the entire 80 minutes on audio if you don't have a live, if you care to listen to it. But I made the point there that it was we Missourians who lit the prairie fire across this country with our vote in August of 2010 for the Health Care Freedom Act. By the way, in the Q&A, Professor Balkin announced to the stunned students that I was correct on that point. That Missourians did light a prairie fire with that vote, that it spread to other states, and that this is, he said, if the court takes notice, this is how we decide constitutional issues in this country. So there you had a liberal left-wing law professor acknowledging that in this country the people have the final say. And we must have the final say in this. I know you've been praying, I know you've been fighting. And like me, you've probably written letters to the editor, blog posts, and talked to your friends about it, made speeches at Tea Party rallies, as I have, and events such as this. But while all that argumentation is important, I don't know about you, but I have a bias toward action. I have a bias toward action. And that is why 1 month prior to that vote in August of 2010, I went to the federal courthouse in my hometown and filed the only constitutional challenge in the state of Missouri against Obamacare. The only attempt to stand up and vindicate the rights of Missourians who said so overwhelmingly by 71% in August of 2010. We reserve to ourselves the rights to direct our own health care choices. Thank you very much. That case is Kinder versus Geithner. You know, remember who Mr. Geithner is? The guy who doesn't pay his taxes but has now responsibility for the IRS. Kinder versus Geithner, Holder, Sebelius, et al. And it is not just economic liberty that's implicated here, it's also religious liberty, and that's why I'm going from here to the rally in the Rotunda for religious liberty, which is also implicated here with the directive from Secretary Sebelius. I'm fighting them on all counts. I'm in the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals, we had oral argument in October. Some of you know my lawyer who did a splendid job, Thor Hearn, who has won constitutional cases in front of the Supreme Court before. But we got there just late enough that they held our case in the Court of Appeals pending the decision from the Supreme Court. So I'm in there fighting. I have been from day one alongside you, and I'm honored to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Those of you following, the answer to the first one is national debt. Here's your next question. We'll get to that right now. Let's stick with the state side for a second. We have a state senator here with us today, Senator Scott, State Senator Scott Root. He is one of the co-sponsors for Senate Bill 464. Senate Bill, he's going to tell you what it is, but 464 is passed out of the Senate. It's actually getting a hearing today in the House, and it is basically designed to take away the opportunity for the governor to pass health insurance exchanges via executive order. I'd like to call Scott up here and expand on that. This fight against Obamacare for us in the state Senate level.
Thank you very much. I'm State Senator Scott Root, and I just want to give you an update of where things stand. I don't think a lot of people realize what was being done behind the scenes to go against the will of over 70% of Missourians that said no to the federal health care bill. They said yes to Proposition C and the Health Care Freedom Act. Now, as a state senator who was able to pass that through the Senate and get it on the ballot, so I appreciate everybody working so hard to get 70% of Missourians to come and understand what actually is happening to our country and the threats to our liberties. So I was appointed to be a chair of an interim committee on health insurance exchanges. Health insurance exchanges are the framework. It is the basic, the constructing blocks to building up Obamacare in the states. So I did my duty and we traveled around the state and we listened to people. It's kind of odd that elected people actually went out and wanted to hear from the taxpayers. And so we did a listening tour. We listened to people to come forth, tell us, do you like this? Don't you like this? What should we do as elected people in listening to you? Well, we were in a meeting last October up in Jefferson City. And all of a sudden we get a word that across town there is a quasi-governmental group called the Missouri High Risk Pool having a meeting. And we got leaked to us their agenda. And on their agenda was the accepting of a $27 million federal grant under the direction of Governor Jay Nixon, who had appointed his director of insurance to start building the framework for Obamacare in Missouri. And the reason that they went this route is because they knew they couldn't go through the elected people because of the voice of the people. So they had to find a backroom deal on a quasi-governmental group that was meeting almost in secret, because we didn't even know about it until the 11th hour, to start building the framework of Obamacare in Missouri, going against the will of Missouri people. So what did we do? Well, obviously I had to sit back, and I was there. My job was to listen to the people. So I stayed and I continued to listen to the people that traveled to have their voices heard. But we were able to dispense 3 other state senators that were with me that day, who hightailed it across town and then confronted the executive director of this quasi-governmental group, and they were able to stop that vote from happening and stop Governor Nixon from building the framework for Obamacare here in Missouri. That is what happened last October. So we wouldn't stop there, even though they gave us their word that they weren't going to do that. We are more of a show-me state. We want to trust but verify. So earlier we came back, the first bill that I got through my committee, I chair the Insurance and Small Business Committee, is we got through a bill that would bar Governor Nixon from building the framework for Obamacare via an executive order, because he tipped his hand and we saw what he was about to do, and we have already passed it through the Senate because we believe that belongs to the right of the people. And here in Missouri, the people have already spoken, and we are going to make sure that for this next year, we're definitely not going to be building the framework for Obamacare here in Missouri. Thank you very much, Scott.